Most guppies do not die of old age. They die in the first 2 weeks in a tank that was set up wrong, bought by someone who was told the guppy is the easy fish anyone can keep. That last part is true. The guppy is one of the hardiest fish in the hobby. But hardy does not mean indestructible. It means the guppy survives mistakes that would kill a more delicate fish, right up until the day it doesn't, because the tank it was dropped into was never built to keep it alive. And the reason each one keeps your fish alive. I am going to show you what a guppy tank must contain before a single guppy ever touches the water, every element it needs, in the order that matters, and the reason each one keeps your fish alive. Get it wrong, and no amount of care afterward will save them. But before I do, I need to be honest with you about the last thing on that list, the final element, because it is the one that matters most, and the one you are most likely to ignore. If you click away from this video without knowing what that final element is and exactly why it matters, I can tell you with complete certainty, the thing that has killed more guppies in clean, clear, perfectly set up tanks than almost anything else is waiting to do the same to yours. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but it is coming, and when it arrives, the water will look as fine as water can look while your fish die in front of you, one after another, for a reason you will never see. So stay with me to the end and let me make sure it never happens to you. My name is Isamu Yoshida. I grew up in Niigata Prefecture, and the first fish I ever kept as a boy were not koi. They were medica and small live bearers, the working man's fish, the ones that fill a tank with life and color and babies without asking for anything rare. A guppy is that same kind of fish. Give it the right home and it will reward you more generously than almost anything you can buy. So let me tell you what that home must contain. The first thing your tank needs is the right foundation on the floor of it, and for a guppy that means a nutrient base beneath a cap, not a bare layer of colored gravel. Underneath, your tank wants a thin layer of aquatic soil or fine aquatic compost, the cheap kind from any pond supplier or garden center. This is what feeds the plants for years, so you never have to pour fertilizer into the water. Above it, your tank needs a cap of sand or fine gravel sealing that soil in, so the nutrients feed the roots instead of clouding the water your fish swim in. Nutrients below, sealed under a cap, that is the foundation, and a guppy tank that has it will grow the plants that keep the fish alive. A guppy tank that skips it, bare gravel over glass, is a tank fighting itself from the first day. And there is a reason I put this at the very bottom of the list, quite literally. Once the fish are in and the tank is running, the one thing you cannot easily change is the floor. You can add a plant, swap a filter, move a rock, but to change the substrate, you must tear the whole tank down and start again. So this is the decision you make once and live with for years. A thin layer is all you want, an inch of soil, no more, capped with a little under an inch of sand. Pile it too deep and it turns sour in the airless layers at the bottom and leaks trouble up into your water for weeks. Thin, sealed, and left alone. And the reason that foundation matters so much is what it exists to support. Because the single most important thing a guppy tank can contain is not the filter, not the heater, not any piece of equipment. It is plants, heavy, living plant cover. But before a tank can hold plants well, it needs something for them to anchor to and hide among. So your tank also needs a simple skeleton of stone and wood. Nothing elaborate. A guppy tank needs a little structure, a low wall of stone, a piece or two of driftwood, for 2 reasons. It gives the tank shape and depth, so it is pleasant to look at, and more importantly, it creates the caves, the shade, and the broken lines of sight that a fish needs to feel safe. A guppy in a bare glass box is an exposed guppy, and an exposed fish is a stressed one. A guppy with rock and wood to weave through is a confident, active, healthy fish. That is what the hardscape is for, not decoration, but security. And a stressed guppy is not just an unhappy one, it is a fish that gets sick. A fish that feels exposed, with nowhere to retreat, lives with its guard down, and its body cannot hold that state without its defenses weakening. This is why two keepers can add the very same fish to the very same water, and one loses them to disease, while the other does not. The difference is often nothing more than whether the fish had somewhere to hide. The wood and stone are not there to please your eye. They keep the fish's guard up. And a fish with its guard up is a fish that does not get sick in the first place. One small thing to watch with the wood. Fresh driftwood floats until it is waterlogged, so hold it down at the start rather than let it bob up and disturb everything around it. Which brings us to the plants themselves, and this is the part of a guppy tank that people treat as optional when it is the whole game. Here is why plants matter more for a guppy than for almost any other fish. A guppy is a live bearer. It does not lay eggs. It gives birth to live, free-swimming young, dozens at a time, and a guppy will eat its own babies within minutes of them being born. In a bare tank, almost none of those fry survive. In a heavily planted tank, they vanish into the leaves the instant they are born and grow up hidden until they are too big to be swallowed. Plants are not decoration in a guppy tank. They are the nursery. They are the difference between 6 guppies that stay 6 guppies and 6 guppies that become 60. So your tank needs to be planted heavily and planted from the very start, because a tank thick with plants from day one has far fewer problems with algae and water quality than a sparse one. And it needs the right kind of plants, forgiving ones that do the nursery job. It needs an easy backbone like Java fern and anubias, plants that need no special substrate and no strong light and are nearly impossible to kill. It needs fast, hungry stems like limnophila in the background, pulling waste out of the water as they grow. And above all, a guppy tank needs floating plants on the surface, frog bit, water lettuce, floating stems, because newborn guppies rise to the top to feed, and a canopy of floating roots up there is where the most of them survive. Heavy plants below, a floating canopy above. That is what turns a tank into a guppy nursery. If what you have heard so far has already changed what you thought a guppy tank needed, the nutrient foundation, the hardscape for security, the plants as a nursery, I want 3 things from you before we go on. Hit like and subscribe, because that is how this reaches the next person about to drop guppies into a bare tank and lose every baby they ever have. And tell me in the comments, is this your first tank, or are you bringing guppies into one you already run? I read every one. Next, your tank needs equipment, and here is where I want to save you the most money, because a guppy needs far less of it than the shop will tell you. And before I tell you what that equipment is, for those of you who want all of this in one place, I am putting everything together into a book. Every method I have shown on this channel, and the ones I have not gotten to yet, gathered into one manual. In a book at my website, isamuyoshida.com. I will not push it again in the video. If you want it, it is there. The first piece of equipment your tank needs is filtration, but gentle filtration, and this is where the shop leads people wrong. In a tank this heavily planted, the plants and the foundation are already doing most of the biological work, converting and consuming the waste. What the guppy needs from a filter is gentle movement and a surface that breathes, not a powerful machine. And this matters more for guppies than for almost any fish because of their tails. A fancy guppy carries a large, flowing tail that acts like a sail, and a strong filter current will blow that fish around the tank all day, exhausted and stressed. So your tank wants gentle flow. A simple sponge filter is the finest thing you can put in a guppy tank, cheap, gentle, and safe for the babies. which a powerful intake will swallow. Your tank also needs stable warmth. The guppy is a tropical fish and wants steady water in the mid-70s Fahrenheit, which in most homes means a heater. But it needs the right heater setup, and I made a whole video on this, because a single large heater is a single point of failure, and one that sticks on can cook a small tank overnight. What your tank actually needs is two smaller heaters sharing the load, so that if one jams, it is too weak to boil the tank alone. It costs no more, and it is the cheapest insurance in the hobby. And your tank needs light, but modest light, not an expensive high-end system. Enough to grow the forgiving plants that do the nursery work, run a short day of 6 to 8 hours. More light without more care is not better. It is an algae farm. So the equipment list is short: a gentle filter, two small heaters, and a modest light. Not one item on it needs to be expensive. But even a tank with all of that, the foundation, the hardscape, the plants, the equipment, is still missing the one thing that matters most, and it is the reason those shop-bought guppies die in the first 2 weeks. The tank is complete. It is not yet alive. What your tank needs, before any fish, is an established biological cycle, the invisible bacteria that turn fish waste from poison into something harmless. A tank filled yesterday does not have it. Drop a full stock of guppies into a brand new tank, and their waste produces ammonia faster than the tank can process, and that ammonia burns their gills and kills them in water that looks perfectly clean. This is the most common way beginners lose their first fish, and they never understand it, because the water looked fine the whole time. So the last thing your tank must contain before the guppies is time. Either the tank is left planted and running for a few weeks to mature on its own, or it is stocked very lightly at first, a few fish, not a full load, with light feeding and daily testing until the bacteria catch up. A heavily planted tank is your greatest ally here, because the plants themselves consume ammonia and cushion those first dangerous weeks. A dose of beneficial bacteria or a squeeze of a dirty sponge from an established filter gives the colony a running start. Understocked, lightly fed, given time to come alive, that is the final requirement and the one most people skip. And only a tank that contains all of it, the nutrient foundation, the hardscape for security, the heavy planting with a floating canopy, the gentle equipment, and a living cycled biology, is a tank a guppy should ever be put into. When it is finally ready, the guppies go in slowly, matched to the water over the better part of an hour rather than dropped into a shock, and stocked at 2 or 3 females for every male, so no female is pestered without rest. And then you simply let them live in the home you prepared. The females are almost certainly already carrying, and within weeks there will be fry hiding in the floating roots and the leaves, growing up in the nursery your tank contained from the start. You will not just keep guppies, you will grow them. So that is everything a tank must contain before a single guppy touches the water. A nutrient foundation under a cap, a simple stone and wood skeleton for security, heavy planting with a floating canopy for the fry, a gentle filter that will not batter their tails or swallow their babies, 2 small heaters instead of 1 dangerous one, a modest light on a short day, and a living, cycled biology given time before the fish and not after. Contain all of that, and the guppy does the rest, coloring up brighter than the day you bought it, breeding without any help, filling the tank with generations of fish. Not because you did anything clever, but because you built the home before you brought home the fish. If you have not subscribed, do it now, because next week I am giving the almond leaf its full video, the free dead leaf that keeps guppies and every other fish healthy the way the medication aisle never wanted you to know. Tell me in the comments what color guppies you are planning to keep, and share this with one person about to bring guppies home to a bare tank, just one, because that is the difference between fish that die in a fortnight and fish that fill a tank for years. Build the home first. The fish will always follow.